Should put the light on. You should have put the light on.
I didn't forget this time. So just to give an introduction for those when they are watching on YouTube, I am Reverend Joanne Angel Barry Cologne, and I'm coming tonight with Q&A on how to shift your energy during the COVID-19. And I thought it would be a good idea to, bring people in and see what questions everyone had and see how we can all come together to answer them. So it's not just about me bringing my insight to answering the questions. All of us are going to interact, engage, and see what we come up with, because we're all going to have maybe different point of views and different ways of dealing. On the overall shifting energy part of it, I will definitely extend some of my intuitive guidance for that portion. So in regards to, let's start off with questions. We'll start with Nick. Do you have any questions regarding shifting your energy, or any specific question that you would like to address in today's session?
I can't think of a specific question right now, but the one thing that I do think of is waking up sometimes.
When you say waking up,
when I wake up,
middle of the night or during?
No, like in the morning.
Okay.
It will sometimes. I will wake up with a lot of stress that I normally don't have, like in the past, where I'll wake up and realize, we're still in this.
Yeah, it wasn't a nightmare.
It wasn't a nightmare, right? And there's that urge just to go back to bed. And, I've had this like mentality some days where thankfully work has sort of made me get up and have to do things, but where I'm like, well, if I sleep till noon, the day will be half over. And then, we'll be closer to tomorrow. I had that kind of mentality in my head. And, there's been days where I felt that way. And today, especially, I felt that way, where I got up and it was raining and it was kind of dreary and I had breakfast and I was just like, I'm going to go back and just sleep until the afternoon because, then I'm at least closer to tomorrow, And it's a coping mechanism, but it's not, I shouldn't be doing it that way.
Okay, well, before you go further, I just want to jump on that shouldn't rather.
Mm-hmm.
Why shouldn't you be doing it that way?
Oh, maybe that's what it works for me, but I feel like that's not. It's wasting time that I should be doing something else with, and that's why like I've used work as an excuse to get up and do things during the week.
Okay.
But I want to be able to do it even on days where I don't have to get up for work. I want to feel like, I guess I am afraid of the days being long again, because the first week this started, every day seemed like a month. And that pressure of feeling like, China did this for 76 days and each day feels like the longest day of my life. How's this going to, that keeps going into my mind, that I guess I have this anxiety about now that the days don't feel as long. If I go back to what I did that week, they'll feel long again.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm trying to, I want a little bit more of a, I guess, advice on how to get up when I get up in the morning to reclaim my energy, to reclaim my motivation that I have every night when we meditate, and that I leave here, go to bed motivated for the next day. What about getting up? What about in the morning?
Good question. So a couple of things I wanna focus in on regarding what you were saying, and then of course Linda can give her 2 cents too. One thing I like to invite you to do is work on letting go of the word should. Like, I should be doing this, or I should have done it this way. Because when you focus on the should, you put a lot of pressure on yourself. And in this space that we are in right now, this quarantine, there's no need for a should. So if you get up in the morning and you're feeling the sense of, well, maybe I'm going to go back to bed and sleep until noon so I can just sort of let the day go by and the day goes faster, then honor what it is you're choosing to do without the guilt of doing it. Now, if for in fact this is something you're doing just to sort of get the day passing, and as a comment you said, so it moves you into you get to the tomorrow sooner. Well, the reality is that tomorrow is going to be pretty much the same like today. And perhaps I'm going to invite you to incorporate something that I've heard during a meditation that I've listened to. Rather than focusing on 30 days, 76 days, etc., focus on the 24 hours that we have in this moment, in this now. So when you do get up in the morning, perhaps developing a 5 minute or even 3 minute meditation. And doesn't have to be like what we do with our 11:11, but just to get yourself grounded, and then asking yourself in this day of unlimited time, because that's really what it is, unlimited time, because we're not really sort of connected to a schedule where we're on a time schedule to have to get to this task and that task, so to speak. But this unlimited time, what can I do to be productive? And what does productive look like for you? Because what productiveness might be for you may be very different for Linda and may be very different for myself. So having your own idea of what productiveness looks like. And if that may very well look like, well, you know what, I get up, my alarm clock gets up, or maybe not no alarm clock for that matter. And when I get up, I'll have my breakfast, and maybe I will go back and lounge in the bed for a couple of hours just to allow myself to rest, just to allow the body to rest. Because maybe these are things that your body needed when we were in the old normal and that you didn't have a chance to do. So now your body's having this opportunity now to say, I get to rest because I didn't have a chance to do that before.
Uh-huh.
And now you're going to honor something that your body's wanting to do.
I see. That actually would make sense, because I did have this sense beforehand that every 6 days or so, every 6 to 8 days, my body kind of had this like, you need to take a day and just, and I used to laugh because I used to look forward to a rainy weekend because it would give me a reason to stay inside and rest. So that actually makes sense that, I kind of hear that sometimes, but I think I ignore it because I almost feel like that's a negative. I've been pounded into my head that the idea of resting is laziness. And so I haven't really.
Resting is self-care.
Right.
And if you can incorporate that philosophy as resting is self-care versus resting is laziness, because again, when you're using the word laziness, now you're judging yourself again. You're back into that judging state. And there's no need to judge yourself, especially now. I mean, who's going to actually come knock at your bedroom door and say, hey, Nick, don't you have something to do today? I mean, hey, they might turn around and say, Nick, could you go pull the weeds out the grass for whatever the reasons are, but the reality of it all is there's no need to judge yourself. And if you could take that mindset and just shifting it from the judgment into, this is my new self-care practice, so you don't need necessarily a rainy day to stay in bed. And if you get up and you're finding yourself saying, I really wish this day would go faster, go back to bed and relax. No one says you have to be in bed and sleep.
Right.
You could just be in bed with maybe the TV on or some soft music on, just to allowing yourself to rest.
Or a good book. Yeah, I found that, in some days where I do get up early and I don't go back to sleep, that I get lost in a book or get lost in a TV show.
Exactly.
And or get lost in like a memory hole of history research that I like to do. And that tends to always make the day go faster.
Yes.
Sometimes too fast, I find.
Yes. Linda, what would be some of your advice you can give Nick on this one?
I guess it's the same, because for me, I need a structure for my day, because I just found that I have things to do, but they don't get done. By the time the end of the day goes, I get upset that I didn't get to do this, I didn't get to do that. So, but definitely in the mornings, setting up a scheduled time to just meditate, there is, I don't know if you know about tapping or EFT,
Yes.
because there's the tapping solution. They have an app, and they have all these really great free tapping sessions about how to have a great day. I'm anxious about the world. I'm anxious about what's going on, like all these different things, and they help me a lot. So
Hmm.
to start the
Yeah.
morning off with that, or anytime really.
Yeah. And if you'd like, before we end today's session, if we have time, we can do a segment of EFT, which is basically emotional freedom technique in regards to focusing on one specific thing that might be creating stress in your life and staying focused on that, which is really the opposite of what the normal practitioners would say to do. Is like, we want to come away from that emotion, but when with EFT you want to focus on that emotion because you want to recognize it, you want to allow yourself to be in that emotion in regards to the tapping portion. So yeah, so that is definitely a really great technique. And like Linda said, there's many YouTube videos that you can actually go and listen to. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, on my YouTube channel, I have a tapping session that someone did with me.
Okay.
So you could, if you want to check out my YouTube channel, you could definitely do that. And for those watching this on the YouTube, subscribe. It's always a good thing. And in regards to for you, Linda, you had mentioned that you need structure and that you haven't been able to maintain. I'm going to use the word checking off your to-do lists. So at the end of your day, you get frustrated by it.
Yes. I have in the morning I have a set schedule. In the evening, I have the set schedule with you and then we're doing the meditations and going to bed. But it's the in between that I found that was having trouble. So I have a friend that was helping me, and then I realized I said, wow, um, my job really created my schedule.
Yes, which I
Literally,
think that's the
just
same. I think that's the same for most.
yeah, it really did. So just having, I mean, the first time since I was on medical leave, I had to just rest. That's all I did was just rest. If I
Hmm.
did something, I would just rest. But now I'm getting more up and I'm getting more physical, and I want to do more things. Um, it's like I want to read books and I want to do this, and then I started feeling anxious. I said, "Oh my goodness, the time is for me to go back to work again." Now all the things I want to get done is start. I just felt this window closing, but when this happened, it's like, okay, now this window's open now, so
Yes,
who knows
yes,
how long.
yes.
But
Now, do you keep a like I like to say a to-do list where you get to check off the things that you actually complete?
um, I keep it in my diary, my calendar, my planner. But my friend had me set up a time where I just put like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I just fill in whatever I'm doing, the doctor's appointments, or
Hmm.
I'm doing a lot of Zoom calls with friends, or just Zoom calls with other like seminars I'm listening to. So I put them in there. If they didn't happen, I just change them. It changes. It changes. So at least there's still some blocks in between, like from 6 to 8, a huge block. Like, what do I do now?
Hmm.
But usually that's the time when I just need to just just rest and don't worry about it. Just
Oh
watch
yes,
TV.
exactly. I
So
had
I'm learning
listened
to just
to
stress myself about it.
Yeah, I had listened to a woman. I forget her name. Why is her name not coming? Oh, that's right. Her name is Rosie, and she had mentioned in the video that I watched her on, where she said we're so used to being busy and always doing things that perhaps maybe this quarantine is not about doing things. Where we're all trying to fill up our every hour on our schedule. And if we have a block of time where there's nothing going on, it's like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be doing something here.
Yeah.
And the
Yep.
reality of it all is maybe we're not. Maybe that block of time that we have where it's free is there for us to be relaxed and calm and quiet.
Mhm.
Because again, I think a big portion of this quarantine, even though yes, it came about due to the virus, but I think the spiritual portion of it is really to help each and every one of us, individually and collectively, to get quiet. And if each and every one of us are filling our schedules up, from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed with Zoom calls and friends calls and classes and this and that, before you know it, at the end of your day, you have the exact same schedule as you had before this took place. And then we sit back, and the universe is probably sitting back and saying, okay, this is not what I planned. I was not looking for all of you to go fill up your schedule with a bunch of Zoom calls and be occupied with that, because now you're not quieting yourself down. Now you're not sitting still. So
Right.
again, maybe it's really about, taking that bulk of time that you do have, whether it's 2 hours or 3 hours, and just saying, this is the time where I just get to sit and be in whatever thoughts that show up. Because yeah, grant you, when we're sitting quietly and nothing's going on, that's when my favorite expression, the little monkey's going to start talking in your ear of all the negative things in reference to, like, oh, you should be doing this, or oh, this is going to go on for this much time, and whatever not. And what I would urge all of us to do is, in that gap of time when it's quiet time, do not turn on the news, because that's only going to add to more stress
Right.
to our day, because now we're going to get all that media talk that may or may not be 100% accurate.
Right.
So,
Right.
so Nick, do you have a comment that you can, feedback that you can give to Linda regarding her schedule?
Yeah, because actually structure is something that I looked at doing. I don't really live a very structured life normally, but I thought this was a time for me to have a little structure. And so I found that I think this actually has helped the days go by faster than me sleeping till noon. The first week I had absolutely no structure. I was just kind of flying blind and like a lost. And when I started like putting together time for work and time for friends and a time for myself, because actually that was Joanne, that was one of your first things that you told me, was to set time for yourself, not only just a meditation, but also just to like enjoy the silence a little bit. When I started doing that, I gradually added more time for that as every day went by, because at first it was very scary.
Yeah.
I do have what I always felt was a crippling fear of isolation and loneliness. So that's why this was so scary to me, because it was me facing one of my worst phobias for the first time in my life. Like, if you had told me 20 years ago what a scary thing would be, it would be something like this for me. So
now, just to point out for you, Nick, and not to make it lighter or not to make light of it, but theoretically, you do live with your parents, yes?
I do, yeah.
Yes.
So you're not in what we would call like 100% isolation, because you still have other humans under the same roof as you.
Which I would have needed either way. So even if I was alone, I would have probably went and moved in with a family member or somebody for the duration of this, because I couldn't be alone. But I didn't want to be alone. But I also realized that there are times in the last few weeks where I just like, I wish they weren't here. I've had those moments. But thankfully, the house is big enough and we have enough room where I do get a chance to be alone, like right now.
Yes.
But what I was talking about structure is I would add increasingly every day more time for that moment of being alone. And what I would find is that I first, it was just me kind of like sitting quietly and listening. And then I found that I was being told to use it to write, to record, to journal, to read something, to pull a book off the shelf that I haven't pulled off the shelf in years and look at it, to go back and look at old photos or something of something, to find, I went and found out that I have reason, I believe that my great-grandmother came to the United States from Italy because of the 1918 epidemic, the Spanish flu. That was the catalyst that sent her to America. By just looking at old information about her. I mean, I always knew she came here in 1920. I always knew the story behind it. But I've since learned that, and there's a funny story behind why I did that, but so I found new information about my family. I did some genealogy to find out the history of my family. And and so I found that like that moment of solitude gave me a structure. It allowed me to add things during the day. And so now I have time where I do some historical research and time where I do. And I also watch TV less and less. I have all these plans to watch all of these shows. Like I had 6 seasons of Deadliest Catch. I thought I'd be in season 4 by now. I'm only in season 2.
wow. Yes.
because I don't watch much. I watch maybe 2 hours of TV a day now,
Yes.
not 14
Mhm.
like I thought.
Exactly. So I wanna ask you. I want to touch on something you said earlier in this part of the conversation. Only so again, when the YouTube listeners are watching this, you had said that I heard you say that you heard to maybe do some writing.
Right.
Now I know what you mean. I'm sure Linda knows what you mean. But what exactly do you mean by you heard to do some writing?
In complete layman's terms, I listened to whoever it was outside my body speaking to me, whether it
Okay.
was my higher self, my spirit guide, my own brain. I don't know who it was. I
Yes.
mean,
Yes, I just
we
yeah,
know who.
I wanted to touch on that just so again for those who are watching this, they have an understanding because they too may be experiencing that and have
Right,
no idea where that other voice is coming from, where that message is you know coming in from.
right,
So yeah, so of course, my whole process is, we're here to educate others as they watch this because the key point of this is we're asking the questions that we're asking where most people might be thinking the same thing in their head, and we're sort of giving them some support here
right,
in reference to
Right.
that.
right.
Yeah.
And so it's important to also listen to that. I mean, it's a lot of people, and I had arguments with people close to me who were like, "Oh, that's just you telling yourself stuff," And I say, just sit there and just clear your mind and listen for something. You're not gonna. You might literally hear a voice. You might just feel it. I
Mhm.
feel it more than I hear it. I just have this like sense that this is what I should be doing right now.
Mhm.
And sometimes I just involuntarily start doing it. Like I wrote an article the first week that this was going on, and it was a moment of solitude where I thought about that exactly a year earlier. I was on vacation in South America, and
Wow.
and I was like, oh, remember when I was in Cartagena? I remember I was like, well, that was so awesome. I wish I'd been doing that now. And I had this sudden urge just to look and see what was going on there, and it turns out the city had gone into lockdown that day
Oh.
in South America. And it
Uh-huh.
out came without me even really, I mean, I don't even remember me starting to do this. I don't remember the thought process that had me do it. Before I knew it, I had a 1,000-word article about how a year earlier I was in Colombia and now they're locked down. And oh, this is my worst fear. And this whole thing came out about how scary it was for me, but at the same time, how comforting it was that the whole world was going through it at the same time.
Right.
And that moment just ended with this great piece that I wrote. And so that's when I realized that, well, this is a good way of me just to turn off everything and listen to myself and make that time in my structure every day.
Mhm.
Yes.
And that helps you cope. That helps you. It really has been the most helpful thing.
Yes.
I've written fiction that way. I've written stories that way. I'm
Mhm.
just starting this week a play where I'm actually going to. I'm hoping it's a play. Going to the characters are going to be people who unfortunately passed from this, but their life stories. Because
Oh, okay.
I know Holocaust survivors who passed away from this. I
Mhm.
know people who came here from Cuba on the Mariel boat lift who passed away from this.
Mhm.
Vietnam vets. They have such fascinating life stories,
Sure.
and so I want to start documenting them so they're not just remembered by how they died.
Mhm. Of course.
You
Of
know.
course.
So
And
these are
this
all
could
things that have helped me cope with this, and I can't believe we're a month in now,
yeah.
but
Mhm.
And this could be one of the reasons why you have chosen this lifetime to be reincarnated in this experience so
mhm,
you could be that person that writes about all the people who have passed and to share their stories.
right, right.
And if I mean I'm sure Nick knows what I'm speaking about. I don't know if Linda, are you familiar with the Akashic Records?
I've heard of it, but no, I'm not.
Okay, just in very brief, because I can go on about it. The Akashic Records is what's basically called the blueprint of your life from uh, prior to being reincarnated in this lifetime, because we've been reincarnated multiple times in our lives. This is not the very first time we are here, and it gives us information based on all the different contracts that we have agreed to sign with different people that we have come in contact with. And it can only tell us about past and the current present here. It doesn't give us any information about what's going to happen tomorrow
Okay.
until
Okay.
we get into tomorrow. But
Mm.
it does give insight regarding every contract that we
Mm.
sign. And
Wow.
as many Akashi record practitioners will say, every one of us who are in this quarantine worldwide, we all signed a contract individually to be a part of this experience for whatever the reasons are. Now, theoretically, we could go and have an Akashi record reading to find out what is the process behind the
Mhm.
situation
Mhm.
and what are
Mhm.
we supposed to shift so we can learn from the situation, because every experience is a lesson and every lesson takes us to where we need to go.
Mhm.
So as all of us on a collective point, we've all agreed to be here. And I've said this numerous of times to people, and it sounds really morbid and uncompassionate. Is that a word? Uncompassionate? How do you say uncompassionate? Is it uncompassionate, incompassionate? How do we say that?
Incompassionate, maybe?
Okay, there you go. So it
Yeah.
might sound like I'm being really incompassionate, where those who are, I'm going to use the word crossing over, going back home to heaven, they sign their contract for this particular virus to be what takes them home.
Mhm.
And I know it sounds harsh to understand that,
Yeah,
because there's so many people who have crossed over,
yeah.
and
A
there's no
lot.
mistake to them crossing over. In their past life, before being born in this lifetime, they've made that decision that during this particular coronavirus, this would be what takes them back home, because they have done everything they've come to do.
It's funny because I'm reading a book about World War II where one of the victims of the Holocaust sacrificed himself to save a child and then was killed, and actually said in one of his writings that this was always going to be my my destiny. My destiny was to die here when he was going off to die. And I mean, he was like a religious person, so he was doing it more as this is what God sent me here for.
Yes, well,
But
that's the same concept when we talk
right.
about the Akashic Records. I mean, every one of us are born because God sent us here,
Mhm.
and God gave us specific purposes and gifts to either, I'm going to use the word discover or even rediscover, because again, we've done this before. Every one of us have been here from a past life and has done whatever lessons. Now, theoretically, the lessons that we're here to learn in this lifetime, in a past life, the way I like to say is that we chose in the past life that we weren't able to do those lessons then, so we agreed to sign a contract to do it in this lifetime.
Mhm.
Mhm. Oh, okay.
And when we sign the contract in this lifetime, it's in regards to all the different lessons that we're going to learn in this lifetime, and why collectively every one of us are being forced, and force may be a really like negative word, so to speak, but it's really a high vibration word right now in regards to our universe. God, whomever we want to call, is asking every one of us to be still, so we really can raise our frequency, so we can become a higher version of ourselves, so we can sustain the lessons that we have to learn from this experience. And if we're not willing to learn the lesson from this experience, we're not shifting. And yes, of course, the whole process, when we get up in the morning, it's like you get up in the morning and the first thing you're thinking to yourself is like, oh my God, this wasn't a dream. This is really happening. And I'm going to do the exact same thing I did yesterday, today, because this is what we're doing, you know. And some days you might be more productive, and other days you may not be productive, And again, depending on what's going on around, like, for example, yesterday I was out and about going to banks, and realized that yesterday, and I think it actually took place at the beginning of the week, but I only found out this week, that the banks are not really allowing you in the bank.
Hmm.
You know, you can either go to the walk up or you can go to the drive through. But no more. And if you are allowed in the bank, they're only allowing, I think, 2 customers in at a time. So it's like, wow. So this is another thing that's shifting for us. So when we think about all these little things that's shifting from almost 4 weeks ago to now, it's really about shifting our own energy and how to shift our energy so we can start to match this new way of life. Because as I keep saying, and I'm sure you've heard me say it, we are going to move into a new normal. We are not moving back into what it was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and because we've been doing this for almost 4 weeks now, there's an old saying that goes, anything you do for 21 straight days becomes a habit. And we've been doing this for 4 weeks now, so we're past 21 days. So what we are doing is becoming a habit now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what keeps us in that space of, I guess, fear or worry when we wake up in the morning is like, oh my God, I have no control. And it's the control part that I feel confuses us. It's because we don't have the control to like, okay, I'm going to have my breakfast, I'm going to get in the car, and I'm going to go see so-and-so. Because I'm sure if this was all about where we could really go and see the people we wanted to see, we'd be okay. We'd be okay with working from home.
Right.
Yes. We would be okay with, okay, we have to go to the supermarket and stand outside before we get inside. We'd be okay with that, as long as we were able to go see the people we want to see. But because we're not able to go see the people we want to see, that's, I think, the big thing that causes everyone to get so about, because it's like, I can't go see whom I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because theoretically, I'm sure at one point or another, we've all said to ourselves, you know what, this is a good day just to stay home and do nothing.
Right.
And now we've had 4 weeks of that time of being home, and not necessarily not doing anything, but doing it differently. And I think that's really the big process. Now, I want to ask the two of you, because we have about a little less than 5 minutes to go. Would you want to come off and continue, or would you want to be finished when the time's over?
It depends. And do you have more to tell us? You have more insight?
I mean, it really depends on the two of you if you have more questions.
I mean, I could think of some. So.
All right.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, if both of you want to continue once we jump off, then we'll come right back on. If that's what you want to do, we can continue it. That's fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So when we're at the point where we're like 2 minutes off, then we'll jump off and then come back on.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, because again, I just want to get this. I want to get to the place where we can shift our energy each day, and understanding that every day is going to be very different. I mean, we may wake up tomorrow morning and feel really great about where we are and go through our day fine, and then the next day or two we may not. Now I don't know if that has any bearing on the factor that collectively and planetarily speaking, the energy shifts every like 2.5 days, such as like the moon, for example.
I need it on.
What's that?
Sorry, being disturbed. Sorry.
It's okay. Where the right now the moon is in Pisces energy. Now, if you know anything about astrology, out of the 12 astrological signs, Pisces is the most emotional sign there is. It's emotional, intuitive, psychic, and very dreamy. So when the moon is in Pisces energy, it draws up emotions for us. And depending on if you have Pisces in your chart, how it's going to impact you. So if you have Pisces in your sun, rising, or moon sign, you're going to really feel this energy in Pisces. Now, come Monday, this Monday coming, that moon's going to shift into Aries energy. Now, Aries is not emotional like Pisces is. So what you're feeling today into, let's say, even tomorrow for that matter, by tomorrow night, you may suddenly get this urge of energy that shifts, that you're feeling like, wow, I have to make sure I get up in the morning because I want to do this, I want to do this. And you're going to do it because of the energy of the moon and all the other planets for that matter, because each planet shifts every so many days, and that impacts us individually. Whether one believes that the sun, the moon, Pluto, Mars, Jupiter has any impact on us at all, it does. Like I know Nick is familiar with it, but Linda, are you familiar with Mercury, the planet Mercury?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the fact that Mercury goes retrograde 3 or 4
Yes,
times?
ma'am.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So just in case for those who might be watching this later, Mercury A is the planet of communication, technology, travel, scheduling, planning. Now, thank goodness this whole COVID-19 is not taking place during Mercury retrograde, because I can only imagine how we would all be feeling if that was happening. Exactly. So when we think about Mercury going retrograde, it just means communication, technology, schedule, planning all slows down. And that affects everybody. So now if Mercury can affect people in that way, why wouldn't Mars? Why wouldn't Pluto? Why wouldn't Jupiter? Why wouldn't the moon? I mean, I'm sure you've heard the expression, when the moon comes out, you got a lot of Looney Tunes out, because the moon is lunar. It's a lunar moon. So it definitely makes sense to why we would feel more crazy, so to speak, or uneasy, or a little, devilish, because the moon's energy creates that energy within us.
Right.
And any of us who have Cancer in our sign, Cancer's ruled by the moon. And what I just learned last night through my astrologer, those who have Cancer in their chart, they're the most moodiest sign out there, because every 2.5 days the moon is constantly moving, and because Cancer is ruled by the moon, Cancer's emotions are shifting every 2.5 days.
Wow.
And I had said to my astrologer, I said, well, that truly makes sense now in reference to my ups and downs. But we have less than a minute, and rather than getting interrupted and really disconnecting, we're going to disconnect and we'll come back.
Okay. No
All right?
problem.
Okay.
Okie dokie.
Okay.